This sacred technique that heals uneven hips works through instant leveling, a quiet switch that resets the ground beneath you. Not a single stretch, no repetitive exercises, no tricks that only mask the real problem, not a performance, not a placebo. There is a hidden code within your own bodily structure, a geometry inscribed in bone and breath, a truth buried beneath layers of methods that fail because they address noise while the signal goes unheard. Your body tilts because it lost connection with the primordial axis, the vertical river that threads you from crown to heel. And that tilt drains your creative energy in ways you can't even imagine. Every misaligned step, every shortened breath, every tension that accumulates in the body is the consequence of a sacred throne knocked out of true, a seat of power turned sideways. What you are about to discover runs counter to everything you've tried before, because it goes straight to the aperture, where your life force gets blocked and your presence is trapped in the margins. In minutes, you will have in your hands an adjustment that repositions the inner axis and restores your base to its place of origin. Quiet, stable, awake. Prepare to understand why your body betrays your intentions when it is off-center, and how 3 precise gestures, light yet exact, transform a structure that hangs into a temple that radiates creative power and moves like it remembers where it came from. Observe your own body in this moment. When one hip rises, it drags along an entire web of adaptations you've never consciously noticed, a tug on fascia, a whisper in the breath, a recalibration of balance you mistake for poise. The arch of the opposite foot lifts to equalize leg length, forcing the opposite shoulder to drop in a desperate attempt to maintain visual balance. Your spine develops subtle curves of compensation. Your head tilts by millimeters so your eyes remain parallel to the horizon, while the inner ear and atlas make tiny trades to keep the world from seeming skewed. This cascade doesn't happen by chance. Your nervous system sacrifices symmetry in the name of survival, prioritizing immediate stability over structural harmony, mapping emergency detours so you can still move through the day. Yet there is something conventional methods ignore completely. In ancient Hermetic knowledge, the pelvis represents the throne of the soul, the sacred point where spirit meets matter to generate manifestation in the physical world, the chalice in which intention gathers weight. When this throne tilts, your capacity to create from a solid base is compromised. The energy that should ascend through the central axis escapes sideways, leaking through the joints and fascia lines, leaving you constantly fighting against forces that should be your allies. By the end of this video, you will master an exact 3-gesture technique that realigns your pelvis within minutes. With retests, your own organism will confirm on the spot. Each gesture is calibrated to access deep neurological layers, proprioception, vestibular tone, reflex arcs, not just muscular surfaces. So the sacrum sets like a keystone, and your structure remembers how to stand in its original vow. But why does this lateralization happen in the first place? The answer lies buried in neurological layers conventional medicine rarely touches. In reflex corridors, where posture and feeling share the same wire. Your nervous system possesses an unconscious capacity called neuroception, discovered by neuroscientist Stephen Porges, which detects threats in the environment even before your conscious mind perceives them. A silent smoke alarm, reading tone, gaze, and rhythm. When danger is perceived, whether through physical trauma, prolonged emotional stress, or even ancestral patterns transmitted epigenetically, your body adopts protective postures that crystallize over time. One side may assume dominance to shield the other. Deep muscles like the psoas contract asymmetrically like a vigilant sentinel. Fascial chains thicken where there is overload, braiding into dense ropes. What began as intelligent protection becomes structural prison, a strategy that forgot how to stand down. Research in epigenetics reveals that your ancestors' experiences can modulate your muscle tone through genetic marks that are switched on or off, a watermark of memory pressed into tissue. This means your pelvis may be guarding stories that aren't even yours. Polyvagal theory demonstrates that autonomic states shape posture when your nervous system interprets the world as dangerous. It fixes your body into defensive patterns, narrowing breath, gaze, and gait. Here lies the reason stretching systematically fails. Stretching treats the mechanical symptom of a neurological cause. It's like trying to fix a frozen computer by tapping only at the keyboard when the operating system needs a reboot or the firmware must be reset at its source. The sacred technique that dissolves this neurological prison operates through 3 fundamental pillars, each calibrated to access specific layers of the system that governs your posture. The first pillar is directed breathing, a tool of neural reprogramming that goes far beyond simply taking a deep breath. When you deliberately prolong your exhalations, something extraordinary happens at the level of the autonomic nervous system. The tide turns inward. The vagus nerve, which Stephen Porges called the vagal brake, is intensely activated, immediately reducing the sympathetic hyperexcitability that keeps your muscles in rigid co-contraction, like guards who forgot the war had ended. This is not abstract theory. In real time, long, controlled exhalations lower your ribs, normally held high by chronic tension, allowing the diaphragm to dome and the intercostals to soften, creating physical space for the internal obliques to wake from their functional dormancy. These deep muscles, when reactivated, begin to tug your pelvis back to center, not through mechanical force, but like a compass rediscovering north. They do it by reorganizing the neural command that decides where your weight is distributed, updating the midline map your system uses to stand and move. Directed breathing doesn't just move air within the lungs, it moves information through the nervous system, altering the conversation between the brain and the deep postural muscles, so the pelvic floor can ungrip and the sacrum can settle. Each prolonged exhalation is a chemical and electrical signal telling your body it is safe to drop the guard. It is safe to return to the original axis. When the ribs descend and the obliques awaken, your pelvis receives the first command to return to center. And in that instant, you can feel your structure beginning to respond differently, weight releasing through your heels as presence returns to the core. The second pillar reveals how your body is an integrated tensional network, where distant muscles converse through invisible myofascial chains called slings, cables within a living suspension bridge. There are 3 fundamental slings that, when activated in the correct sequence, reprogram your postural coordination without stretching a single tissue. The anterior sling connects your internal oblique on one side with the adductor of the opposite thigh, creating a diagonal line of force across your torso, a quiet drawstring cinching you toward midline. When this chain awakens, it literally pulls your center of gravity to where it needs to go, redistributing weight automatically and intelligently, as if the floor itself re-leveled beneath you. The lateral sling unites your gluteus medius with the lateral abdominal wall, stabilizing your pelvis in the frontal plane and preventing it from collapsing to the sides. During dynamic movement, the guardrail that keeps your stride from spilling. The deep posterior sling integrates spinal multifidi with the gluteus maximus, keeping your craniosacral axis in vertical coherence so your head rides steady over your heels. The genius lies in the activation sequence. First, you awaken the anterior sling through specific positions that make the internal oblique speak to the contralateral adductor. This conversation happens via fascia, not conscious command. A low-frequency signal traveling through the body's fabric. When these two muscles reconnect functionally, they create a vector of force that shifts your center of mass exactly where your pelvis has been asking for years. Next, the lateral sling is called in to stabilize this new position, while the posterior sling ensures the change integrates into your vertical axis, locking the keystone in place. All of this occurs through positioning and breathing, never through direct muscular effort. You don't force the change. You create the conditions for it to emerge naturally, and the system reorganizes itself with relief. The third pillar is where the true alchemy happens, the transmutation of rigid tension into dynamic coherence through a precise sequence that accesses the neural software of posture, not just its muscular hardware. Here lies the fundamental difference between methods that fail and the sacred technique that transforms. Your body is not a machine of independent parts you fix one at a time. It is a networked organism where signals ripple faster than force. It is an integrated system that responds to specific neurological commands, and those commands can be reprogrammed when you know the right language, the syntax of safety and orientation that the body trusts. The precise sequence functions like a reset protocol. Each gesture is strategically positioned to create a neurological cascade that unravels old patterns and installs new ones, like clearing corrupted cache and writing clean code. First, you place your body in a configuration that confuses the protective system, maintaining the lateralization, interrupting the prediction loop that keeps you braced. Next, through calibrated micromovements, you offer the nervous system a better option, one that is more energy efficient and less noisy to maintain. Your brain, which always seeks energy economy, quickly adopts this new organization when it perceives its superiority over the previous one, updating posture the way it updates a reflex. There is no struggle, no resistance, because you are working with the system's intrinsic intelligence, not against it. Directed breathing prepares the neural ground. The deep slings create the functional connections, and the precise sequence integrates everything into a new postural reality, an axis that holds without effort. In minutes, tensions you've carried for years reorganize because the central command has changed, and the scaffolding resets around a more truthful center. Your body stops fighting itself and begins to operate from a unified axis. This is what you are about to experience in practice, a clear demonstration of software rewriting hardware in real time. Now you will master the exact technique that materializes these three pillars into a concrete transformation of your bodily axis, turning theory into felt change. Begin with 3 self-tests that reveal which side of your body carries the imbalance. The subtle handwriting of your nervous system. First, self-test. Slowly turn your head to the right, then to the left. Notice which direction flows more easily, without catches or resistance, as if the spine were a well-oiled hinge. Second, self-test. Lie on your right side and try to raise your left arm toward the ceiling. Repeat on the opposite side. Observe where the movement happens without excessive effort, where the shoulder glides rather than grinds. Third, self-test. Lie on your back, knees bent. Let your knees fall to one side, then to the other. Notice where there is less resistance to reach the floor, where the low back stays quiet. The side where all 3 movements are easier indicates your dominant tendency. We will work to redistribute weight to the opposite side, restoring the middle path. Step 1. Oblique breath. Lie on the side that needs to receive more weight. Hips and knees bent at 90 degrees, forearms supporting your head like a gentle shelf. Gently lift the pelvis, without tensing the neck or shoulders, keeping the throat soft. Exhale through the mouth for 5 to 8 seconds, feeling your ribs descend naturally, the diaphragm doming as the belly draws back. Inhale softly through the nose, expanding only the upper hemithorax like a quiet accordion. The target sensation is the internal oblique on the underside, waking up while the upper side lengthens. Internally, a subtle ribbon tugging you toward center. Perform 4 to 6 full breathing cycles. Step 2, inner step. Switch to side lying on the side opposite the easy side, and place your feet against the wall to borrow its steadiness. Set the top knee a few millimeters behind the bottom one so the pelvis stacks without twist. During exhalation, press the inner edge of the top foot gently against the wall, using only 20% of your strength, letting the jaw and brow stay soft. The target sensation is the inner adductor subtly lighting up, without the tensor fasciae lighter compensating, no outer hip gripping. Perform 5 to 8 cycles, each one small and exact. Step 3, key of the throne. Lie on your back, feet on the wall, knees bent, and place a loose strap or belt above the knees so the legs can rest into it. Keep the ribs low and discreetly lift the foot on the side that tested easy in the self-tests. Press the heel against the wall while sliding the top knee a few centimeters forward until you feel the low lateral glute activate. Never the lower back, never a pinch. Sustain during a long exhalation. Inhale without tensing the neck or flaring the ribs. Perform 6 to 10 cycles, letting the pelvis settle as the sacrum feels heavy and calm. Immediate retests. Repeat the 3 initial self-tests. More symmetrical neck rotation, freer arm abduction, and equalized pelvic rotation confirm the axis has returned, a quick proof written in motion. If the pendulum has swung to the opposite side, reduce the intensity and shorten the holds. Practice twice a day for 10 to 15 minutes for 7 to 14 days, and let the new pattern root as effort gives way to quiet alignment. Ashlyn had always been skeptical of solutions that promised quick results. A ceramicist for 20 years, she knew intimately the difference between superficial changes and true transformations, the way a glaze can fake depth while the kill reveals the truth. When she finally decided to test the sacred instant leveling technique, she did so without high expectations, moved only by the fatigue of living with pain that limited her creativity and turned her studio hours into quiet negotiations with discomfort. In the first 15-minute session, following exactly the 3 demonstrated steps, something unexpected happened. Her initial self-tests showed clear asymmetry in neck rotation and arm abduction, a sticky catch to the left, a guarded breath at the collarbones. After completing the oblique breath, the inner step, and the key of the throne, the retests revealed a symmetry she hadn't experienced in years. The head turned without protest, the arm rose like a smooth hinge, and her pelvis settled as if it remembered an old agreement. More surprising than the physical change was the sensation of presence that emerged immediately. For the first time in decades, Ashlyn felt truly inhabiting her own body. Weight distributed evenly on the sit bones, breath flowing naturally through her torso, without the constant tension in her neck, as if a background hum finally clicked off. In the days that followed, her creative energy reorganized completely. Pieces that once demanded effort began to flow with organic ease. The clay met her hands without argument, forms lifted true at the wheel, and decisions that used to feel forced arrived on time like rain. Her hands recovered subtle sensitivity, fingertips reading moisture and thickness with new nuance. Her movements at the wheel became more precise, and she rediscovered that feeling of being fully present during creation, grounded and lucid. In 2 weeks of daily practice, What seemed like a postural shift revealed itself as a full restoration. The throne of the soul had found its true axis, and the studio felt like a temple again. Ashland's case illustrates something fundamental about this technique. It works because it collaborates with your body's natural intelligence, not against it, partnering with reflexes instead of wrestling them. When you follow the steps exactly as demonstrated, you are offering your nervous system a more energy-efficient option, and it adopts this new organization because it recognizes its superiority: less noise, less strain, more coherence. To maximize your results, maintain consistency in daily practice for at least 2 weeks, allowing the neurological changes to consolidate fully the way wet clay sets into form. Always perform the self-tests before and after each session. They are your inner compass, confirming when the axis is restored and alerting you if you need to adjust intensity. A clear yes or no from your own structure. Practice in a quiet environment, without haste, allowing each gesture to be executed with subtle precision and unbroken breath. If at any point you feel discomfort or the retests indicate the pendulum has swung to the opposite side, cut the intensity of the movements by half and shorten the holds. Less is often more when the nervous system is learning. Remember, you are reprogramming neurological patterns that may have existed for decades, so be patient with the integration process, giving your tissues time to trust the new map. The sacred technique honors your body's organic time, and your body will honor this technique by returning the balance that is yours by right. Trust the intrinsic wisdom that inhabits every cell of your structure, and let it guide you back to the axis that quietly keeps every gesture true. Stop. Feel this now. Your body just remembered something it had forgotten: what it's like not to fight gravity every passing second, to let weight fall through you instead of hauling it uphill. For the first time in years, you are not spending energy to hold yourself upright. You simply are upright, like a plumb line settling in still air. This isn't technique, it's awakening. For decades, you carried an invisible weight, the constant exhaustion of a body that sags, compensates, that never finds true rest in motion or in stillness, like a tent pitched against a crooked wind. Now you know why you woke up tired, why simple projects felt like mountains, why your creativity leaked like water from a perforated bucket. It wasn't laziness, it wasn't age, it was a misplaced throne, draining your life force before you could even use it, a quiet tax on every breath and gesture you made. What you experienced in the last few minutes was not correction, it was a silent revolution, a rescribing of your internal map. Every muscle fiber that reorganized, every breath that found new space in your torso, every nerve impulse that rediscovered its original path. All of this happened because you finally offered your body the one thing it has always wanted: permission to return to center. The neuroscientist Antonio Damasio wrote, "We are, and cannot help but be, what happens when the body meets the mind." You have just witnessed that meeting, the handshake that ends an old war. Your body found your mind in the only place where they can fully coexist, along the axis that unites earth and sky, weight and lightness, structure and consciousness, the vertical thread that stitches you to yourself. From this moment on, every step you take will be taken by someone who remembers what it means to walk from their own center, and that this changes how you occupy space, how you breathe the air, how you speak and choose and rest, how you exist in time. If this content resonated with you, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. You're helping to expand ancestral knowledge that transforms lives through bodily realignment, a signal ripple that reaches those who need it most. I want to know how this practice impacted your structure. Write in the comments. I level my hips and restore the throne of my soul. This affirmation activates your connection with the community of those who have rediscovered their own center, and it marks the moment your body chose a truer axis. Share this video with someone you know who carries postural pain or feels disconnected from their own body, and continue your journey of transformation. Click on the screen and dive into another revealing piece of content on the channel. Each practice learned brings you closer to mastery over your physical temple, one precise gesture at a time. Remember, when you stop fighting your structure and begin to inhabit it fully, life ceases to be resistant and becomes a flow of connection with the source, breath, gravity, and intention braided into a single, steady path.